again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Bryan Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latex gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me this time is Big Blue. Blue, how you doing, my man? How was your weekend?
Good, man. It was busy, man. I had a lot of paperwork and stuff I was doing, and then I had back to school. Kids had forgot to tell me they needed all this stuff, and they were panicking, so I had to go get all this stuff for them this weekend. So.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Back to school is crazy, dude. Traffic has been a little bit nuts the last couple of days out here in San Antonio. For those that are in Texas or in San Antonio, Texas, back to school was this week. Traffic was crazy.
Yeah, even just like picking them up after school. I do like walk-up pickup because the line gets so long. I hate waiting in my car that long. And I'd rather just park and get down and get her and walk back in. And the other day was the first day. It took like 35 minutes, and it was like 103 out there.
Dang.
It was not a fun day.
Don't sound like it, my man. Don't sound like it. Speaking of not having fun days, let's get into the Bryan Kohberger case. Before we get into today's topic, there is a couple of documents that were dropped in. Let me bring them up real quick. Presets, share the screen. Let's do this. I didn't have this ready already. All right. So this is referencing the reply to the state's objection to the defendant's motion for change of venue. So just to catch everybody up, there was a survey done by the defense team and Ann Taylor and Bryan Kohberger, basically surveying some of the possible jurors in the area about how much information that they were aware of when it came to the Bryan Kohberger case. And their goal, obviously, is to move the court from Moscow, Idaho to another place. And they came out with 300 and some odd page document as to why. And a lot of it was, basically saying that, or pointing towards the fact that if a neighborhood decided to have a vigil to pay their respects for the victims, that somehow tainted a jury, that if the police department asked and procured information from the public for, to attempt to locate a suspect, that is also tainting a jury. A lot of like First Amendment rights type of stuff, freedom of free speech, thought, they don't want you to think about the case, anything like that. And the state came back and they said that, well, statistically, Latah County wasn't, the worst of, maybe it was the worst of all the other cases, the other counties, as far as, their thoughts on the case, their knowledge of the case, their thoughts of Bryan Kohberger's guilt. But a short second or close second, as far as who knew the most, was Ada County, the county in which they want to move to. And, and including there was other counties that were surveyed, and a couple of other counties by far had better percentages. It's come to my attention. I was talking to Forensic Frenzy about this through the email chain, and she mentioned that Bill Thompson brought up, I think it was like Nez Perez County, something like that. I think it may have been that county. I could be wrong, but he brought up a certain county that hasn't gone in favor of Ann Taylor where she's tried cases or as a public defender. And I thought that was interesting that she would probably want to stay away from those places because it's not been in her favor before.
Yeah.
And so now they've come back because of the statistics are showing that statistically it's not very far different outside of Latah County, and that where they want to go in Ada County is worse when it comes to certain things as far as some of the more important percentages. So this is their reply to what they're saying. And they basically said that during the survey, let's put it this way. It says here, the pressure to convict Bryan Kohberger is so severe that Latah County survey respondents said if he wasn't convicted, they'd burn the courthouse down. Outrage would be a mild description.
Right.
They would probably find him and take him out. There would likely be a riot, and he wouldn't last long on the outside because someone would do the good old boy justice. Enraged, strong opinions, firing of officers. Riots, parents would take care of him. Oh, wow. So some people were even going into the fact that they think that some of the parents are going to turn vigilante and take care of him on their own. The mob mentality within the community is the exact reason the statutory grounds prior to selecting the jury exist to move venue. Well, how about not try to commit a crime in a small community? Because at the end of the day, this is a small community. And I think that's pretty crazy to call the entire community mob mentality. What do you think about that?
Yeah, man, I think it's pretty crazy how they want to, if he doesn't get a guilty verdict, that they're gonna burn the place down. Or, I mean, it's plausible, but I think with the case this big, they're gonna have security and police.
Right.
They'll be able to get him out. But
you know what this doesn't say though, Blue? It says some of people. It doesn't say how many of these people came up with this type of response.
Yeah.
I mean, let's put it this way. How many responses are there? I highly doubt that one person or more than one person said that there would likely be a riot and wouldn't last long outside because somebody would do the good old boy justice. You know, that's a one-off, right? They'd probably find him and take him out. Maybe that's not a one-off. Burn the courthouse down, outrage would be a mild description. And that's a one-off. Enraged, strong opinions, firing of officers, maybe not so much. Parents would take care of him. Maybe not so much a one-off. Maybe somebody would say something to that effect. But you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 statements here. And I could think of at least, 4 of them being one-offs. Are these statements coming off from like 7 or 8 people out of all the people that they talked to? You know what I'm saying? They're not putting any numbers or things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's just a minute few. There's half the people that live in that town are students, and half the locals. I mean, I don't think they're gonna go that crazy. They went to the vigil, but I never saw anything like his apartment building getting set on fire.
I think
severe like that.
No, not them. I think that the victim's family members in this case have received more threats that are worse than this from Kohbergers than what is being said here, to be honest with you. And the sheer amount of it too. The Kohberger movement of what they said that they would do, or even just the sheer blame of innocent people is worse than any of this stuff. I mean, this is pretty bad. Don't get me wrong. Describing taking the life of somebody else without justice. That's not right. But, this is mild in comparison to what I have seen in the comment section from some of the Kohbergers.
Yeah.
A lot of the Kohbergers. Let me reframe myself on that. And it's a lot more than just these 6 or 7 one-offs that they have listed here. So what do you take this as, Blue? Do you think they're going to get it?
I think they are going to get the venue change. I think just because it would benefit the community more if they did move it, just so it wouldn't be overcrowded there, and they can get the court case done sooner.
Yeah, that's possible. Me personally, though, I don't think they're going to move it after what the state said as far as the numbers go and how it looks like as far as other counties' numbers versus Ada County. I think what's going to end up happening is I think he's going to probably sequester a jury from one of these other counties that tested better and bring them to Latah County. I think that's probably the best bet. You get the best of both worlds. You keep it local, and the decision makers aren't those that are tainted. I mean, it's coming from the best, percentage wise, what would be in his best favor, as far as people who knew about the case or had a pre-notion of guilt against them. What do you think about that, Big Blue?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I think it's just one of the things where wherever he goes, there's going to be somebody that's going to like him, somebody that's going to hate him. So it doesn't really matter where he goes, but there might be a little bit more bias there if it stays in that county.
Frenchie comes up with an interesting statement. She said, or comment. She says, "Do they think that someone who made that comment wouldn't travel to Boise to take him out if they truly meant that comment?" That's true. I mean, that's not a lie. I think that if there was truly a mob mentality and there was a multitudes of people that were coming up with the same sentence, one, it would say that in that document. She would have clearly said, "Hey, look, even if it was a small amount, but a group amount of people, like 10% of these people said that, hey, they're going to create a mob and riot." I mean, okay, you have multiple people saying something, but a bunch of one-offs and like only 5 or 6 of them out of the people that you've, surveyed. Come on now. I mean, you're going to find 5 or 6 people that are crazy. They're going to take, say anything in any type of survey. Yeah. So, you got to kind of account for that. And then Mark says, they will get to change of venue because it's a DP case. I don't know, man. I don't think so. I think that if they I think they're going to end up bringing in you know what? That sounds like a good idea. We can definitely do that. I think they're going to end up bringing in a jury from outside. I'm not saying that they're not going to bring in a jury. They're not going to do something different, but I don't see them. I don't see the problem with them doing such. You know what I mean, Blue?
Yeah, I get it. I think, sorry, the phone was going off. Trying to shut it off.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Siri says, smash that like button and ring that bell. Subscribe while you're at it. Yeah, 100%. We'd appreciate that. We'd appreciate if you would do that. All right, I'm going to start this poll. I'm going to put it in here in a second. Should BK get a change of venue? Yes, no. It's in the poll. It's in the live chat. So those that are watching in the replay, let me know in the comment section. Put yes, he should, or no, he shouldn't. Let me know what you guys think. All righty. So while that's going on and working it out, I wanted to talk about something else, Big Blue. I did a video not too long ago referencing what was it that Bryan Kohberger was doing around 2:47 a.m. Right. If we go back to the PCA, right? Undecided, can we have an option? Well, gosh, I wish I could have put that. I don't know if I can add that. I'd have to go check. Let me see real quick. In the meantime, what I was going to say is, no, I can't add it. If you're undecided which way you're leaning. If you're leaning 10% one way or 1%, just let me know which way you're leaning. All right. So in the probable cause affidavit, there's a conversation, or there's the talk here that Bryan Kohberger kind of disappears for a little bit in Pullman. All right. Now, if we were to read this, it says here on the PCA, and this is page 7, at the bottom, it says investigators were given access to video footage of the Washington State University WSU campus located in Pullman, Washington. A review of that video came to indicate approximately 2:44 a.m. on November 13th, a white sedan, which is consistent with the description of the white Elantra known as Suspect Vehicle 1, was observed on WSU surveillance cameras traveling north on Southeast Nevada Street at Northeast Stadium Way. At approximately 2:53 a.m., the white sedan, which is consistent with the description of the white Elantra known as Suspect Vehicle 1, was observed traveling southeast on Nevada Street on Pullman towards SR-270. SR-270 connects Pullman to Moscow, Idaho. This camera footage is from Pullman, Washington, was provided to the same FBI forensic examiner who identified it as being a 14 to 16 Elantra. So at 2:44 a.m. or approximately 2:44, and I'm assuming that's the time that's on the camera that they have, right? So we can assume that they're correct, but I think that would be a pretty bad assumption. We should give at least a few minutes plus or minus for accuracy. Wouldn't you agree to that, Big Blue?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it does take a little bit of time to find that little gap that's there, but I'm pretty sure they can tone it down more.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I know they can kind of guesstimate it, what time it is, but what I'm saying is the time that's shown on the device. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes of, like, what's the word I'm looking for error, margin of error. So this also says here, so a little bit further down on the PCA, this is page 13. It says at approximately 2:42 a.m., the phone was utilizing services that provide coverage to 1630 Northeast Valley Road, apartment G201, Washington, which is known to Kohberger residents. At 2:47, the phone utilizes cell services that are provided coverage southeast of the Kohberger residence, consistent with the phone leaving the Kohberger residence and traveling south through Pullman. This is also consistent with the movement with the white Elantra. So I think some people are getting kind of tripped up, right? Where they see that's 2:42 here, and that it's not until 2:47 that his phone moves. And I don't think that's the case. What this is saying is that at 2:42, he was utilizing the cell tower that is for his residence. It's not necessarily putting him at his residence. It's just saying that he was in that vicinity. Then it says at 2:47, his phone utilizes cell resources that provide coverage south of the Kohberger residence, putting him somewhere else. Now, I don't think that means that at 2:47 is when he starts to move. I think what that means is at 2:47, he's either checking his phone or he's doing something with his phone that is going to ping him somewhere else, whether he get a text message, check his phone, check his internet, whatever the case may have been. That's what pinged him further down. So it's not necessarily that he started moving at 2:47. It's just that he did something with his phone at 2:47 that caused him to report to the network south of his residence, or moving south through his residence. That's consistent with the Elantra. So it's consistent with what they see on video over here, meaning that this video and the car and the phone pings are all one and the same. So this is at 2:44. Now, let's go back here. Just want to make sure I covered everything that I wanted to cover out here. Approximately 2:47, the phone stops reporting to the network. So that's what he did with his phone. The reason why at 2:47 it pinged him somewhere else is because at 2:47 he's doing something to his phone, whether that's putting it into a dark bag or turning it off or putting it in airplane mode. Right? One of those things is happening, that he's losing network connection. So the last place that it put him at was south of his residence at 2:47. All right. So at 2:44. Oh, wrong one. Let's look at this. All right. So this is, let me see if I can pull this up. I hope I can. This is not showing what I wanted to see. All right. Yeah, here it is. Path back. Oh, no. No, that's not the one. All right. So he travels on this direction at 2:44 a.m. on Southeast Nevada Street, and he stays here. And then about 9 minutes later is when he's coming back around. Now, I had a conversation with Howard Bloom, and he mentioned that there was an investigation going on, that Bryan Kohberger was being investigated because he broke into the Chem lab. Now, before everybody says, "Oh, don't believe in Howard Bloom," yada yada yada, I already can hear it in the comment section. Take that out of your mind. The fact that who said it, it's what was said, right? He said that there was news stations that were investigating Bryan Kohberger because he supposedly broke into the WSU Chem lab. And now he claims it was because of they suspect him of building a bomb. Now, before I spoke to Howard Bloom, this is way before I spoke with Howard Bloom, I had a conversation with somebody else way close into the case, And I was told that he was suspected of breaking into to WSU. And he was expected to supposedly have used some things at WSU to help him get away with the crime. One of the things that was described to me was things like pneumonia, that stuff, pneumonia or whatever. Can't think of how to pronounce it. The stuff that you put on the black light, amino acid, whatever, and blood cleaner, things like that. Things that would help him get away with the crime.
Yeah, we did make a video about this probably like, I'd say over a year ago. Remember we did the theory that why he went in that area. His car was seen at the ATM, picked him up or something.
Yeah.
So we did a video about this a long time ago, talking about, and that was before Howard Bloom came out with his book and stuff.
Exactly. And so apparently, and from what I had heard, and I think Howard Bloom had mentioned it in the interview, and this was the same thing that I had heard, was that they had found, I guess he had stolen or taken a card that would have given him access into certain areas, like the Chem lab. I heard it was the Chem lab. Now, where's the Chem lab? Come to find out, well, let's see if we can put it here. It's the Fulmer Hall in Pullman, Washington. But you check that out, Big Blue. There's that, and here's the Fulmer Hall. Right there. Right in the direction he would have traveled, and then come back around. Now, the Fulmer Complex. The Fulmer Complex is actually 4 connected facilities of the original Fulmer Hall Annex, Fulmer Synthesis, and underground vibration-free laboratory hidden below the concrete plaza. So here it is, and for those that can't see this, because it is kind of small, it says chemistry building. Now, I know somebody's going to be like, Daniel, but the things he may have gone, wasn't he in the forensic class or whatever the case may be? Well, let's look a little bit more into it. So this is the welcome to the chemistry storeroom. The storeroom carries more than 3,000 unique items, including chemicals, lab supplies, and office supplies. We serve WSU students, staff, and faculty, and happy to accommodate out-of-department purchases with IRI. Now, what do you take out of this little small paragraph, Big Blue?
Well, just because I know why that they do this is because I actually spoke to a chemist yesterday who told me she was in charge of one of the local colleges here for their chem labs, and the chem department she called it, but it's also the school. Because they need to properly store these chemicals. So they're not going to have them all over the place, and they can't allow anybody just to grab this stuff or touch this stuff because some of it's corrosive or explosive or very harmful. So it has to be all under lock and key. So that's why they have all the chemicals there. And then whatever project they're working on, they put in the order request and they get it sent to them, or they have to come pick it up once the orders are ready, because the chemist has to mix it or get the volume that they need.
Right. And so this says here that they serve WSU, meaning and student, staff, faculty. So more other people would have had access, but it means that they store everything, not just the chemical stuff, but they would have stored the forensic stuff, the hazmat suits, the paper, it sounds like, the printer cartridges that you would go and look for and get. This was the storage supply for everything. Wicked comes in saying the ID cards found in a glove in a box at his parents' house were probably the IDs he used to get into the lab. That's very true. Everybody started, my mind started thinking like, hey, if this is where he ended up going, then, this might explain why there's little to no DNA in his vehicle and little to no of his DNA left at the scene outside of the knife sheath. Could he have found something that gave him help? Now, there's the Chris Porco case, right? This one was out of Rochester, New York, where he drove 3 hours, killed his father with an axe, hit him in the head, stood over him and did it. And then he hit his mom over the head with an axe, attempted to kill her, but she ended up surviving. No sign of cleanup, no nothing, left everything there. didn't take a shower, nothing, got in his Jeep and drove 3 hours back, and they didn't find any blood or anything in his car or in his Jeep. And the way they ended up, or the way they assume he committed the crime without getting any DNA or any blood or anything like that in his Jeep, was that he worked as a vet tech, and he would assist veterinarian offices with surgeries, and he had access to equipment that protected and shielded, the nursing staff and the doctors there from getting blood and stuff getting on them when they were performing surgeries.
Yeah.
So he had access to things like that in this area. Now, Beth says student staff laugh out loud, so he had permission per the student and TA access, laugh out loud. Yeah, but it would be pretty obvious if he ended up going and sliding his card at 3 a.m. You know what I mean?
They use the card readers to tell who goes in.
Right. So he probably stole one of the female PhD students that he works with.
It's like restricted access to certain areas.
Mm-hmm. That's
so
true.
He might only have access to his area. As a TA, you're not access to everything. They give you access to certain areas. Just like in big office buildings, when you work in certain areas and you only have certain access. You scan that badge, it ain't going to open every door.
That's true. You have to have access to certain places in certain parts. So 100%. And I mean, he wasn't there very long. So that also tells me that he probably either knew very, very much where he was going to go, or he put something to the side somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what I was wondering too. Like, I don't know if there is cameras, because it normally is cameras and keypads and access, door things to see who's coming in. And sometimes, like, there might not be a camera at the door, but there will be that access reader will say whose badge was read at that time.
And what'd be crazy, bro? If they catch him on the camera there and he's wearing Vans shoes. You know what I'm saying? What are people gonna say? People gonna say then? Oh man, everybody wears Vans shoes. Everybody wears Vans shoes. Everybody has a white Elantra. Everybody carries a knife sheath. Everybody has Bryan Kohberger's DNA on them. But there very well could have been cameras there. I think that we have to remember, when was the probable cause affidavit written? This was written a few days after they got his name. They went out and they found his DNA, and they ended up arresting him very quickly. So this information about, the WSU ID card or whatever it was that he stole allegedly to get into the chem lab, those things probably weren't found out until after his arrest. So those things wouldn't have been in the probable cause affidavit. It sure as hell going to be in trial, though. So we'll find out if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure. I remember the story saying that the cameras caught him going in there and leaving, but some of the cameras didn't catch his car. So, but maybe it's because he parked it somewhere and he knew there's not too many cameras, and he walked to the building.
Yeah. Some folks, they just get so confused with the fact that, or not so much confused, but they literally think that they're in the case, and that if they haven't seen the evidence, that it doesn't exist. I find that so confusing. I'm confused by their confusion.
I mean, it might not exist. There's
you're right.
All these cameras, and there's not witnesses, but
right. Those things may or may not exist, but I find it funny when somebody's so adamant that something doesn't exist because it wasn't in the probable cause affidavit, not realizing that, I mean, how many days was it between the time that they got Bryan Kohberger's name and the time that they arrested him? So we know for a fact by December 20th, that is when Payne had gone up and testified that he spoke with the WSU officer referencing, the white Elantra that he had found. And that was the day after that supposedly the IGG was revealed to the police department that, hey, you might want to look at Bryan Kohberger. So the 20th, and they arrested him, the 29th, something like that. They had to find him too, right? So some of that time was looking for him. They found him at his mom and dad's place, and they had eyes on him, I think, the day before Christmas. And they didn't pick up his DNA till the 27th. So, this thing was written right then as everything was going on. And you can kind of tell based on how the way the PCA is written, now that I think about it, that they started writing this as they were going along, trying to discover, while they were discovering things, which is why there might be some things in there that don't make sense, to be honest. But well, I mean, it's not so much they don't make sense, but they shouldn't be in there. You know what I mean?
I
Go
was
ahead.
gonna say for criminal, I mean, we don't know if he broke into the chem lab that day, that night, or if he went to go pick up something in his office that he had in one of his kits. It's hard to tell. There's the theory that's out there. That's what he did.
Right. Well, so I've heard from one source, or a couple sources, but I heard it from my side of things that Bryan Kohberger had broken into the chem lab, and I heard about this a long time ago. And then I hear it also from Howard Bloom, and this is why I bring in Howard Bloom, because he hears it from his sources who are completely separate from mine. And so now you have these two groups of individuals who I know that are close to the case and or also have sources that are close to the case, who are coming up with the same story. Maybe a different why, but the same thing as far as he broke into the chem lab. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So, I mean, you can deny it. And, right now it's allegedly, which is why we're also saying allegedly. We don't know for a fact. But at the end of the day, I mean, 2 + 2 is 4, whether you write it down or you can do it in your head. Like I said before, all signs and all arrows are pointing in this direction. And then you come with the fact that there was lack of DNA from, the assailant onto the bodies of the victims. A lot of people keep talking about there had to be a cleanup. There had to be a cleanup. Well, now we have this guy at the damn chem lab, and no, it couldn't have been. I don't get it.
It could have been a cleanup, could not have been a cleanup. If he broke into a chem lab, there's a lot of chemicals he could have got access to, and they would have a log. They'd have a log, and they would know if anything's missing.
Not necessarily, man. There's 3,000 items in that lab. Like, how often do you think they're going to do an inventory? Because it's going to come down to when they do an inventory.
They have to do a yearly inventory, and they have to do a yearly, like if it's expiring, they have to dispose of it the right way. They have to have the MSDS forms for every chemical that they have there. Then the MSDS is a chemical, exposure form that, if it lands on your skin, if it gets in your eyes, if you drink it by accident, what to do.
So would it be more suspicious to you, Big Blue, if you found out that inventory happened just before the 13th of November?
I mean, if it happened and they were short, then they would
no. If they did it before the 13th of November, if they did it November 10th, that was before I'm assuming he went in there and took something that night. That's my alleged. That's what I think. I think he went in there and took something the night of the 13th. If we found out that this inventory was done the 10th of November, this annual inventory, doesn't that seem suspicious that as soon as that thing was done, that weekend, boom, something happened? Now, I'm not saying that it happened then. I don't know when it happened, but I mean that inventory could have been done, November. It could have been done in April. Either way, they wouldn't have figured it out until April.
Yeah, I mean unless like you said, somewhere they found that he was in there, something was missing, and then they'll go back to the logs and start trying to figure out. It's kind of like, I mean, I'm not saying this is part of it, but it can happen. Like if any of y'all ever saw the series Breaking Bad, when he got the first drug lab, confiscated. One of the masks had, the college's or the high school's name. So that's how they were able to find out that some of the supplies was taken from the high school there because it was not part of their inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, if they have all these kinds of chemicals, and if you want to be as smart as they say he is, you would want something corrosive to get rid of that knife. You can go bury it; it can be found. But if you find something corrosive, an acid, something that can eat that metal, you'll never find that weapon.
Well, Howard Bloom mentioned that the chemicals that he had supposedly taken you could build a bomb with, or maybe that's what they're thinking or whatever. But maybe you're right. Maybe it was to make some sort of chemical bath to dispose of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, did they find? I don't remember any chemicals in any warrant. So if he ended up taking these chemicals from there, and it didn't have to be chemicals, y'all. It could have been, surgical gloves, hazmat stuff. I mean, this says more than chemicals. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All that stuff. If he had access to it during class, he should have taken it when they were doing, their.
It could have been that inventory thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
That forced him to do it at the last moment.
But the crazy part about it is that sometimes the same chemicals to build an explosive is also the corrosive chemical to destroy stuff, like acids. So it depends on what you're looking at.
Angel D comes in with an interesting comment. Says, "Did Montana have access?" Speculation. So, for those that don't know, there was a letter that was found in Bryan Kohberger's parents' house. I think it was a letter from Bryan from Montana to, I don't know, something like that, right? And it was weird, right? Because it's like, how long did he be out there in Pullman? Did he take a trip to Montana while he was out there and send a postcard or something? A letter from Bryan from Montana. And then come to find out, there's a female. I think she's also a TSA or teacher's assistant, not TSA, a TA. And I think she's also either that or a PhD student. With her last name was also Montana, there at WSU. So that would be interesting. That would be interesting if that were to be the case.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. I think I want to see that what happens there. If anybody does an investigation, links anything.
So convict's thoughts with ARA says, well, why would another PhD student have access but not Kohberger? I don't think we ever said that Kohberger didn't have access. It has nothing to do with having access. It's about having a record or a documentation that he did that. If he goes in there and steals somebody else's card and walks in there with a hoodie on and a COVID mask, well, it's going to be kind of hard to determine who that person is.
Yeah.
Especially like on cameras and things of that nature.
Well, it's like at my work, right? I work in the medical field, and everybody has their own passwords and logins for their computers for two reasons. One, the company has to, for HIPAA, they have to monitor who has access to the information that's in the system. So it keeps a log of every time I log in and click on somebody's date of birth or name or phone number, trying to, and it could be just taking a phone call, they're calling in, wanting a refill, wanting a prescription change or something. It keeps a log that I logged into it, And the other reason is to stop theft. Also, in some of the hospitals, not in my clinic, because I don't have the narcotics that they have at hospitals, but they have logs on who gets access to the pain medicines. You have to scan your badge, put in your code for the machine to even dispense you the medicine for the patient, because there's so much narcotics dealing that has to be. There was, and now it's all pretty cracked down, but there's a lot of new rules and implications to stop all that kind of stuff, and it just checks, and it digitizes everything now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the reason why you steal somebody else's, so you don't get caught.
Yeah. It's like now, have any of you ever seen the Good Nurse? Remember, we're gonna have her on here.
Yeah. I've messaged her a couple of times. She's always telling me, "Yeah, we got to do it," but then completely disappears before I can get her on.
In the movie, they kind of show that concept where they steal the guy steals her. Uses her code, or she uses his code or something.
Yeah,
and they're like accusing her of something when it was the guy. So.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Like I said, that's why he stole somebody else's. Rebecca Bruce asks, "Where did this new info come from about him breaking into the chem lab?" My apologies, I think I missed that part. Well, I've known about this for a bit. This wasn't something that was new to me. I was told that he had supposedly used things from WSU to assist him with the crime that WSU wasn't necessarily aware of, and that he had allegedly broken into the chem lab to do so. And I'd known about this, oh gosh, a long time now. And then I interviewed Howard Bloom, who's the author of When the Night Comes Falling, a requiem for the Idaho murders. And in that conversation, he mentioned that he has sources that include other mainstream news media folks who have sources in law enforcement who have told them that he had broken into the chem lab, and he was under the assumption, this is all allegedly, that this is just an investigation that they're looking into. That they were thinking maybe it was that based on the things that he was either had taken or planned on taking, had was to build a bomb. Now I heard he broke in somewhere and used things. Bloom wasn't 100% certain in that interview. That was my perspective. He may be 100% sure. I'm not sure. I didn't ask him, but from my perspective, that's what I gathered. What's up, Big Blue?
Let's say when we heard of it, we weren't told right away it was chem lab, or maybe they told you, but I didn't think it was a chem lab. Remember, we thought it was like he broke into the office late at night to steal like his cleanup kit or something, or steal from the cleanup kits, the booties, and steal. That's what we kind of said. It was an episode probably about a year and I don't know, 2 months or something ago.
Yeah. We talked about him breaking into it. This isn't a new thing. You're absolutely right, Blue. Thank you for reminding me of that. Comments thought says, so WSU is in Washington State. Yes. Yeah, broken into anything on that campus, why would we know? I mean, there's a lot of crimes that happen that we're not aware of. And who's to say that Washington State University even knew at the time of Bryan Kohberger's arrest?
Yeah, because I remember we even did a breakdown of like the street views. Remember, we did the street views and we were looking for cameras on the side of the buildings, and we saw that there was like an ATM there. Say, well, maybe the ATM caught his video. Yeah, we talked about this a long time ago.
Yeah. This isn't new. And also, I mean, a lot of people will say this, like, oh, why aren't they this charge for this or that charge for that or that charge for this? When somebody gets charged with DWI manslaughter, I don't really see the traffic ticket for, speeding or, crossing a line or any of those things. So, you end up getting charged for the biggest of the crimes. Now, there could be these charges, and I would probably assume that it's what they're investigating now to charge him. And if they're looking at the whole bomb situation, that's going to be a federal investigation. Why would we know if they're going to charge him if they haven't done it yet? I mean, this is bigger than just the theft. You get what I'm saying? It's the theft. And then if they have anything that shows the intent of, trying to clean up or get, the crime scene, get away with it, or to the ultimate thing, building a bomb. I mean, it's more than just the theft, my man. I mean, there's more to it.
I would say, it's like every case is different. They're going to go for different things. It starts off with this try to convict, and then we'll go after everybody else that led up to him being able to get access to things. And it goes back to just like shooting victim cases. I would say the Uvalde case is a big one that's going on here in Texas, where the shooter didn't make it out alive, and then they went after right now they just convicted the I think it was the chief of police, and then the first officer that responded from the school district that didn't go in, they just got convicted. And then the families of the victims sued the local business that sold the weapon to the gentleman, and it's going to be the same thing over here. It starts off with conviction first, and then all the small cases go afterwards. Except that here, there was no case for the shooter because he was unalive. So
true story, man. That's a good point there. And again, don't fall under that misconception that you think you're in the case. And I'm not referring to you, AR Hayes. I'm referring to Lovey here. There's cameras everywhere except in the chemistry building. They would definitely know. Who's to say that they don't know that? You don't know that. That doesn't mean that they don't know that, and it doesn't mean that the law enforcement and a lot of other people don't know that. Don't get confused into thinking that you're part of the case and that you know everything, because and that you're afforded to know everything, because you're not. I'm not. Big Blue ain't. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, we're not gonna
know
have
your
all
role. There you go. Know your role. Who was that? The Rock? Know your role.
Nah, but you know, it's one of those things where it intrigues us. We want to know more. We want to know as much as we
Oh,
can.
I
But
understand
you
that.
know, there's gonna be stuff that's gonna be kept behind, court papers, and it's gonna be redacted for the reason of trying to give him a fair trial. And after the trial, I think those records might be released. They might not.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And another prime example of them not putting everything in there is, like, for instance, the latent footprint in the PCA. A lot of people confuse that with there being only one latent footprint, where that's not what the PCA says. The PCA says that Dylan's story of the perpetrator leaving towards the back sliding glass door is real because of a latent footprint that is facing that direction. It doesn't mean that that's the only footprint. We have to actually think about it. Let's think about it logically. Let's use some common sense. A latent footprints means that it's very barely visible. In order for it to become latent, there has to be certain steps that occur. Like, you're going to have steps that are visible, and with every step that occurs is going to be less visible until it eventually becomes latent. Meaning that if you had a bloody footprint on one side of the room and a latent footprint on the other side of the room, one can deduce that the person walked or entered, even though, let's just say, you couldn't tell which direction the feet were facing. One can deduce that one entered through the area where the bloodier footprints are, because the bloodier footprints are going to dissipate throughout the steps that you take. So because it was a latent footprint, that means it was one of the latest steps that they were taking, corroborating what Dylan stated when she stated that she saw that the perpetrator heading towards the sliding glass door. I hope that made sense. Now, that doesn't mean that there's only one footprint. It just means that the latent one corroborates what Dylan is saying. So we don't know everything.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean,
and the probable cause affidavit was written within days of them knowing his name. It's been a lot longer since his arrest.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
They'll go to court. They'll bring the evidence that they have up there. I believe, and this is always my theory, is like after everything, after the prosecution and defense have all the evidence that they have, if they didn't have a case to stick them to, manslaughter or death penalty, they would have pleaded with him already somehow. They would have done a plea deal.
The mere fact, Blue, that they didn't go in there and question him should tell you a lot.
Oh yeah, no, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, if they had any doubt that they might lose, they might throw plea deals out there, because at least they'll get them for something.
True story.
Nothing. So
that's true.
I think there's some more evidence out there that we don't know about.
You know what?
There's evidence out there we don't know about.
When you have somebody that you're interrogating, right? And if they're smart, you usually hear them say something to the effect like, "Hey, if you guys had any concrete, real evidence, you wouldn't be talking to me. You would have just arrested me." Well, that's what they did to Bryan. They didn't talk to him. They didn't need to. They had enough evidence to arrest his ass, and that's what they did. Steph C says he needs to plea because his goose is good regardless. If I were his attorney, I'd advise him to plea to save his life. But with the other cases too, he's done. I agree. As far as pleading, we don't know if they offered him one, as Blue mentioned. And I'm not sure. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. High price this campaign comes in with $2 super chat. They prove he went in the chem lab, lock, stock, barrel. If they can prove it, here's the thing. Let's just say he does, right, Big Blue? Let's say he goes into the chem lab, and let's just say they find out that a certain chemical is missing, and they find traces of that chemical inside that house. Do you think that's strong?
I mean, it's strong, and I know they took the floorboards up and everything, so they still have certain things they can test. So
remember his hands right off the bat. Remember his hands? They all looked all fugly.
Well, that's because he was wearing gloves all the time. When you lose
Well,
gloves all the time, you get sweaty and wrinkly
his
hands.
nails were like yellow, and he had purple fingertips.
Yeah, he's probably either,
If he was messing with these chemicals,
it could be
and
chemicals
you
or
find some
burns.
weird chemical, like if you find some weird chemical on the bed or on anything, dude, that's just as good as that's some strong ass evidence. Like, hey, this person allegedly went into this chem lab. They're missing this chemical. This chemical was found at the scene. That'd be strong, dude. That'd be strong.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, it could be chemical burns. Or it could be when I wear gloves for too long, I take them off. My hands are, they start turning whiter, and then they get all wrinkly. But the nails being purple and stuff like that, that's either like a bruise, burn, or some people bite their nails and cause kind of fungus infection, stuff like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. He's probably
I know.
very scared, nervous on that plane ride, several plane rides that he took back from Pennsylvania to Idaho. And if he wasn't a fan of flying, and that was his first time in the air, good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Somebody pointed out that those fingers and his nails, that's also like a symptom of messing around with some chemical stuff. And if that ends up being the case, man, and they find that some of those type of chemicals at the scene, I mean, that's as good as like, remember that moment where they have it on the Linda Lane camera where he stops for a second, then he turns the wheel, and you can hear the wheel turning on the pavement, leaving tire pieces of the compound on the ground. If they're able to go in there and pick up that tire compound and match it to Bryan Kohberger's tire compound, saying that was the vehicle that made that turn right then and there, that's good too, man. That's some good evidence right there. Now, we don't know if they have that or not, but I would assume, especially the tire one, that shouldn't be hard to discover and find. Natalie James comes in with a $9.99 super chat. Thank you so much. If you have a comment, let me put a couple of stars. We'll bring it up for sure.
Yeah. No, there's a bunch of evidence that I think is out there we don't know about yet, or it's gonna come out. But we gotta all be patiently wait at least maybe one more year. Like I said, they're pushing it to next summer, right? They're thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Once they get everything situated, when it comes to like finding the right jurisdiction they want to have it in, and then starting the case there. I wonder if I think they're gonna keep the same judge even if they transfer over, right?
Yeah, I think so. Beth says, we don't know. You don't know that he ever broke into the chem lab. I'd agree with that. The G's say he had access. I mean, how would they know if he had access or not? And it doesn't matter whether he had access or not. I mean, if you have access and you're like, I don't understand how this is so difficult to understand. It would have been very easy to pinpoint him to the chemical thing if he used his own access card. Like, I don't understand how that's so difficult to understand, or why that's so difficult to understand. It's common sense. Don't you think, Blue? I don't know.
I mean, like I said, they do track stuff like that in the schools.
Right. But I mean, what I'm saying is to think that, it couldn't have been him using somebody else's card because he had his own card is ridiculous.
Yeah, unless you don't want to get tracked to use somebody else.
Yeah. Like might as well use your own card to go commit a murder.
Yeah. He didn't even
throw that one in.
He didn't even try. If it was his, they didn't even try to hide it with some kind of vinyl wrap or anything like that. Easiest thing to peel off.
You need to scan the chemicals when you leave the lab in most chem lab. That doesn't look like there's any scanning right here. This is from WSU chemistry storeroom. All of them are just right there. You can see them all in the background too. There's no scanning involved. So big no for that one too.
Yeah, I don't see the labels and stuff like that. Some of the hospitals they do. Depends on how, but they do have everything labeled, and I'm pretty sure they have everything in their logbook.
So Matt says, I'm not saying that anything wasn't stolen, but a college kind doesn't have the chemicals needed to clean up a quadruple murder. Bleach, that stuff needs to be 8 hours and still will smell strong. I mean, nobody's saying he cleaned up, the crime scene itself with any type of chemicals. We're talking about, potentially his vehicle, which he had 7 weeks to do. We're talking about, the weapon, maybe perhaps dissolving it in chemicals and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not sure what any of this is. What this is chloride, cobalt chloride. I don't know. That sounds pretty crazy. But there's a bunch of different stuff back here. Look, there's this triangle thing with a big exclamation point, and another one with a fire thing. So you have flammable and dangerous chemicals right there behind it.
Corrosive.
Very corrosive stuff. Interesting.
Yeah, they have all kinds of chemicals in the chem labs.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's this like high tech security here that he'd have to go through if he had access to getting in there. It seems like he'd just walk up and take whatever he wanted.
But I think with the time that he had cleaning up an area, it wouldn't be feasible. So I think that's out of the picture. But
what do you mean?
Like, if he could, like, some people think that he cleaned the house.
Nah, he didn't have enough time to clean the house.
He didn't have enough time. But somebody saw him. Somebody yelled out, "Hey, what are y'all doing?" or whatever she yelled out.
Yeah.
So I think it's more like it could be like said, maybe clean the vehicle, clean his. I want to say it could have been, if it's a supply room too. Could have been supplies. He could have got booties. He could have got gloves. He could have got that mask.
Goggles, mask. Yeah. There's so much he could have gotten. Could have gotten some kind of chemical to put on his eyebrows, like a gel-like chemical to make him look bushy. I'm not lying, dude. I went to the mall, I think, or somewhere. I don't know where I went, but I was somewhere where there was a lot of people, and I saw this one lady. She had some gel thing in her eyes. I guess they were doing something to her eyebrows. My God, I was like, whoa. And I was like, you know what? Maybe that's what he did. Maybe he put some petroleum jelly or something in there, so that way it wouldn't fall out, during the struggle. You
can do that.
And that would maybe even give him like an ultra appearance of bushier eyebrows. And that's why it was so predominant that she noticed it. Could be what it was. Jason asks, has BK's sister done any interviews? Not to the public, I don't think. I haven't seen anything to the public.
Yeah.
But in the Kohberger family statement, they put out there that they have fully cooperated with law enforcement. It's exactly what it says, word for word. Fully cooperated with law enforcement, and that they something to the fact about the presumption of innocence in Bryan Kohberger. Not that he was innocent, but that he had the presumption of innocence, which is given to everybody. They didn't sound too convincing about his innocence in that one. BK used his own car. Doesn't make sense. I mean, if somebody used their own car and they got caught, I mean, doesn't that make sense? Here's the thing, though. Let's do this game, Big Blue. Let's play the game. Bryan Kohberger's new to the area. All right. If Bryan Kohberger committed this crime, let's actually think, all right, if he did it, what car would he have used, Blue?
We've gone through these theories before, so
no, I know, but I want to play the game. What car would he use?
Without being so suspicious, it would be his own.
Right. But let's just say he couldn't use his own car. Okay. What is he going to do? Is he going to steal one?
Rent one, steal one, or borrow one?
All right. So let's go with rent one. Do you think there's some documentation that somebody rented a vehicle somewhere?
Always, if it's legit.
Okay. I mean, it could be an online 2-row type of thing. But here's the thing. If you were a private renter of your vehicle and you rented out your Hyundai Elantra on the same night that some 4 people got murdered and they're looking for a car that matches yours, you're not going to come forward and say, hey, I wasn't in my car, but I rented it out to this guy.
Yeah.
All right. So the rent thing is kind of stupid, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah, we said,
it's stupid. Rent out a vehicle is stupid. They're going to get caught. Paper trail.
You get a bike there, but then, I think too many people would have seen a guy biking in the middle of the night. But
well, hold on, we're not there yet. So You said that there was the borrowing aspect. Well, how new to Pullman is Bryan Kohberger that he knows so many people to borrow a vehicle?
I think maybe 6 months. I think it was.
Nah, dude, he got there in like June. So June, the end of June, I think it's the 22nd is when we know some party that he went to. So split it June, July, August, September, October. Oh, yeah, about 6 months. You're right. So 6 months. Now, he could have met random people at parties and things of that nature, but for the most part, who do you think Bryan Kohberger associated with?
Just his teachers and coworkers and students.
And those teachers, coworkers, and students, what field of study were they in?
Criminology.
So do you think one of these persons would assist him in this type of crime, wanting to be a criminologist? And or do you think that if Bryan Kohberger or somebody would have borrowed their car, that they would not have turned him in? If you were Bryan Kohberger, do you think you're going to go ask somebody who wants to be a cop if you can borrow their car so you can go commit a quadruple homicide?
No, you would lie though. You would say, "Hey, my car broke down. Can I borrow yours during the night?" Or
Right? No,
I don't think he had friends close enough.
No, I don't disagree. You're not going to go and tell him. But what I'm saying is, you don't think a criminology student is going to pick up on this, and do you not think that a criminology student wouldn't go and dime you out at the first opportunity?
Oh yeah.
You get what I'm saying? You think they're gonna put two and two together, kind of check their car and be like, man, this dude like cleaned it out with bleach and stuff. You know, even if there was a slight suspicion, you don't think they would go and dime them out? They want to be cops.
Yeah, they would definitely say something if they lent the car to him that night. Or, you know, now that we know the truth, he said he was by himself driving out there in his own car.
That's true. I mean, that's what he said. Now the other one was that he steal a car. Now Big Blue, if he were to steal this car, I mean that means he's got to get away with 2 crimes now.
All you need is a USB port and a Kia, and you can steal a car.
You can
Kia,
certain cars.
Kia boys taught thousands of people how to steal cars.
But now you have to get away with that crime. You have to go to somebody's house and take their car and hope that there's no security footage around in that area, that there's no cameras from any kind, whether it's the houses, ring, gas station. Hope that nobody sees you, right? You know, all these other things. Hope that you don't leave evidence there at that scene. If you had to break the window, did you cut yourself or doing any of those type of things? Right. So now you got to get away with 2 crimes. And if you get caught with one or the other, you're done for both and done for the big one. And so now you mentioned, well, maybe he could have ran or he could have jogged or he could have biked out there. 20-degree weather, overcast, icy, and frozen. Those don't seem like the elements that you want to be doing those things in. Now, I'm not saying that he would have died, you know, jogging or trying to run, what is it, like 12 miles or bike 12, 13 miles from one place to another. But he also would have had to have taken the knife with him, the sheath, his kill kit, his, you know, the whole 9 yards. Like somebody sees him riding a bike on the side of the road, dressed in black with a kill kit. It's kind of.
I mean, he can carry it in a backpack. He can. I've seen some homeless people with a lot of stuff in one bag and a little backpack. So and I know 12 miles is a lot, but it would take them. Because we mapped it out the other day for a situation, and I think 12 miles in the middle of the night would take like an hour and 30 minutes to go. I think it was 8 miles that we were going, so 12 miles would have been a little bit longer.
Well, I mean, some people can haul ass. 12 miles, somebody can probably do in 45 minutes. But even if you're doing it and you're hauling ass, what does that take you to do? It takes some exertion,
endurance, and then
a lot of endurance, exertion. So don't you think somebody would sweat in those moments? You know,
oh yeah,
perspire. And so now you're bringing in a sweaty person into a scene where there's no DNA left behind. Like there's just so much bad that you end up getting caught so much easier if you don't take your own car. If you take your own car, I mean, take your license plates off, maybe go jack somebody else's license plate. You still got to get away with that crime. But I mean, you can probably, if you go commit a crime, steal some license plates, commit a crime, you could put them back if you do it at night. Maybe they never realized they were gone to begin with. and you don't get caught that way. I probably shouldn't be saying that out loud for some random pro burger to go try to commit a crime, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, like, he didn't know anybody there. He could, I mean, the only thing that he could have done was take his own vehicle. And if that was a mistake, leaving the knife sheath behind was a mistake. Leaving his DNA behind was a mistake. And turning his phone on or even taking it with him was a mistake. Why are you so damn surprised he got caught?
Yeah, the best thing he probably could have done was just left the phone at home on. You know, that's what he probably should have done. That would have been one of the flaws that where it'd be hard to prove that he left anywhere.
Right.
Except for the cameras of him leaving the apartment complex and then down the street. So, I mean, that's where either way something's gonna be caught. Sorry, my dog's barking.
That's all right, my man. You know, Chris comes in saying his sources got it from your source. I mean, that would be crazy if we end up having the same source. But his source was mainstream media. Me and mainstream media don't get along too well. So I highly doubt that that's the case. But yeah, I mean, you can hope that.
All I can say is Washington Post, you can kiss something. We're not best friends with the Washington Post or Nightline. Okay.
And people were saying that my source and their source is the same. Well, he definitely didn't talk to the Goncalveses. So either my source isn't the Goncalveses or his source isn't, or either our sources aren't, if they're the same person. So just you know, making you guys think a little bit, trying to figure out who this might be. If it's the same person, it's definitely not the Goncalveses because they never talked to him. Right?
Yeah. No, man, it's just, well, you know, we're getting close to half this year gone. We'll see one more year and we'll find the real evidence will be released, and then we'll find out more. And trust me, there's going to be movies and shows and books about this. We've been reached out about them, that they're in production for some people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep. The Chem lab evidence may be the catalyst for explaining the lack of evidence. The Chem lab evidence also proves premeditation. That is true. That's true. That's 100% true. I like that answer. Well, I think that this thing is pretty clear and obvious. I don't know. Thank you so much, Annie, for becoming the newest member. We appreciate you. We appreciate you so much. We'll be having a members only. So this is going to be the plan for the next couple of days, guys. I did say fugly. The plan for the next couple of days is I think we're going to be doing a show on Thursday. I know I will be. And then we'll probably do a members only show this weekend. So if you're not a member, I would highly encourage you to thinking of becoming one. We have a great conversation. It's not always about the case. A lot of times it's some other stuff, but we do talk about the case. We do get involved in some of the things that are a little bit, maybe a little bit more hush hush, that we don't bring out, maybe more of our speculation versus, you know, facts, so to speak. So that's going to be happening. So make sure you like and subscribe. Let's see. Narcotics has to be overridden to get access. Yeah, but this isn't the pharmacy. This is the chem lab, and this isn't narcotics. It's like cobalt chloride and bleach and a bunch of other chemicals.
Yeah, it depends if they have a pharmaceutical program. Sometimes they keep the compounds in there, so I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Sounds like the evidence would be a long shot that long after the evidence. Well, the tire evidence was probably picked up right away. I mean, we know that they were picking up tire markings immediately that day, the next day. They probably took some pictures of said tire evidence where they found each tire mark and where they, you know, picked him up. As soon as they got the Linda Lane footage and saw that the vehicle did that, all they had to do was match it up to the tire that they already had taken pictures of and already documented in evidence, because they had several of them. So you categorize those and you put them up, and then once you go through your evidence, and then if you can, you got lucky, you got this Linda Lane footage, now you can corroborate a vehicle in that area at that specific time, making a turn that would be consistent with the pattern that you're seeing at that location when you collected it the day after. Then you can kind of say, all right, that car in this video made this track right here. These are the compounds. So I don't think it's that big of a long shot, to be honest with you. Now, if you're referring to the fact that, you know, he had already driven X amount of yada yada yada, maybe, perhaps. But what you're going to try to do is you're going to try to say that, all right, this certain compound came from the same manufacturer and the same grouping of tires that created this set of tires. Now, that vehicle came from PA, came from the east side. So if they can pinpoint it to a group of tires that were sold on the northeast side of the United States, I mean, that's even stronger evidence too of pinpointing it back to him. You know what I mean, Big Blue? Is all this making sense?
Yeah, I get it. And then, like, you know, sometimes, like I said, we've gone through that theory before where we said sometimes it might be a certain tire manufacturer on the East Coast that you won't find as much in the West or North Central. Depends on where they get their tires made at.
What chemicals are used in forensic science classes? Well, luminol, which I think I heard was one of the items that may have been taken, which would have detected the presence of DNA and things like that. Blood cleaner, bleach. I mean, there's quite a bit of chemicals that would help you in the prevention and also the cleanup, you know, with a crime scene. I mean, that's also part of it as well. I mean, one of the reasons why they're not allowing jury to go back into the house is because they said there was chemicals everywhere from the forensic lab that they went in there from the forensic team. So that just tells you that they have chemicals. There's quite a bit. I mean, I know each one of them because I'm not a CSI person. However, that's a good question to ask Steve from True Crime Web. I'm going to see if I can get him back on the show. I have other questions for him, especially in knowing this information, what he may think of. Let's see. We'll be answering a couple more questions, and then we'll be going forward. Agree, Daniel. There's a possibility he was looking for a corrosive substance to help dispose of the. Yes, that's what I was thinking too. I mean, it's more than just like cleaning up the scene. I mean, there's a lot of things that he could have taken in there. It could have been that to dissolve those things. It could have been to help him clean his house. I mean, his car and his apartment. And it could have also been items to help protect him from getting DNA on his person or his DNA being left at the scene, such as hazmat type suits, gloves, booties, things of that nature. Let's see. I thought I remember something about him being fired right around the time or shortly before he was arrested. Yes, he was in hot trouble with WSU. He ended up getting terminated or being explained that he was going to be terminated December. It was mid-December, but it was before he left, because he ended up getting a letter of termination December 19th. I think it was the 7th, where they specified that they had already informed him that he was going to be terminated. And this was the official termination letter that he didn't receive because he was already in the Poconos. We'll answer a few more questions before we call this a show. We went a little bit longer than I anticipated. What up, Black and Gold? Welcome back. Let's see. Anybody have any more rent car receipts, borrow car receipts? Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's nobody else's car that you can use. It's just it doesn't make any sense. Uber. Could you imagine that, Big Blue, Ubering yourself to a murder?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody Ubering to a murder.
People have done it, but you know, not knowing that they were going to do something that day. But yeah, I would say it would be tracked. You know, it'd be like, especially if his phone was off, you got to pay the guys. Mostly Uber's only app only, so the phone has to stay on to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Connor says he drove his own car because he planned on changing his registration the following week. Just lots of cover-up BS. Yeah, that's true. He did change his license plates the week after. How can anyone say at this point that he isn't at the very least a burglar? Chem lab breaking into his friend's apartment. That said, how is him being a murderer not a far stretch from that? You know, I think it's even more important once you find out that he is alleged to have committed a murder, then you start to see all these things, right? Like he broke into somebody else's house. He did this, he did that. You know, these are all signs and symptoms that you would expect to see from somebody who's, you know, eventually going to commit a crime of such magnitude. You know, this is just more circumstantial evidence pointing in that direction.
Yeah, that's what he told the Uber driver.
Open the trunk for my kill kit, please. Man, that's crazy. Let's see. Trina Baker says he could have parked in a dark place. There are no cameras 5 miles away. Yes, left his phone at home. But even if you leave your vehicle 5 miles away or however far, you know, walking there or jogging there, and plus the adrenaline, and also remember he wasn't ready the first time he went around. It took him drove 3 times around, 4 times before he was finally ready. You're not gonna be able to do such things on foot. So, you know, he would have gotten there at 3:26. He's not going to be able to drive off and run away. He's going to have to sit there in the cold and 20-degree weather until that light turns off. And even at that, if he's sitting there waiting, he's going to see the door dasher and he's going to know that, all right, that light that was on wasn't just on because they were awake. It was on because they were, you know, anticipating a DoorDash delivery. So now instead of him thinking that they fell asleep, he's going to know that they have a DoorDash delivery. And so he's probably going to have to wait even longer to make entry into the building. So that Xana, who picked up the DoorDash delivery, is now asleep. And, you know, out there, freezing temperatures, icy. I mean, you can stare at the stars all you want. That's going to be one cold ass night. And I mean, hypothermia and things of that nature are real. He's not the largest of men, especially at that time. The guy looked like he was on meth, very skinny, sunken in face, sunken in eyes. You know, he don't look healthy. And so he looks healthy now. A lot healthier now. And remember, he wasn't running at the time because according to his own attorney, his drives became longer and his runs ceased to exist. They stopped happening. So it was not like he was working out and doing all these things. And now he's no longer working out. He's just doing a bunch of different drives around that time. So, you know, him to get healthier in jail, you know, he's going to be thinner. Somebody that thin, I don't know. How long can somebody of about 6'1", 6'2", about 185 pounds at the time. How long do you think they can last in 20-degree weather, Big Blue? I mean, how long does a person last like that?
I don't know, man. You'll start getting cold pretty quick. So,
but how long before like hypothermia kicks in, or is that not cold enough for that?
I mean, it can be if you're not bundled up and everything. So, I don't know. I want to say without actively moving, maybe I can't say. It takes a while for the body to drop. I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or something.
Explorer Car says, I just don't see why he would risk being in the chem lab. Do we know when he was timed entering into the lab or for how long? Well, he's in the area at 2:47 a.m. And then his vehicle is not seen until 2:53 a.m. coming out of the area. So 8 minutes or so, somewhere around there. 9 minutes is the entire time. Don't take about 30 seconds to drive around from where he was seen to the other side of the street, park, get off, a couple of minutes. Now, I'm assuming that he probably knew exactly where he was going, or he had something set to somewhere. I think he was going to pick up and knew exactly where he was going to go and got out. But I mean, if he was willing to risk killing 4 people, why wouldn't he be willing to risk breaking into the chem lab with somebody else's ID? I don't see the disconnection there. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. All right, my answer, just a few more. If he had chemicals from the chem lab, why would he need bleach? Well, maybe those were the chemicals that he took from the chem lab, or the bleach.
Yeah, they have a lot stronger bleaches, but I don't know. it's a theory that's out there. So let's see what can be proven later.
So if the family had access to the victim's Insta account and knew about the suspect before arrest, then how does the Garrett discovery hold up if it was created after the arrest? Well, I don't think it matters when it was created as long as if it's true or not, right? And two, I don't know if the victim's family had access to the victim's Insta account. What they did was they went to their daughter's account and saw who was following them, just like I went to their account and could see who was following them. I didn't have to have access to their account. It was public information. Their account was public. So I think that's one thing. And two, I'm not sure what difference does it make. I mean, right now, like let's just say Garrett said that the phone pings were inaccurate or whatever the case may have been. Let's just say that's true. He also said that they can be fixed. It's before trial. They can fix those things. Let's just say all that is true. They can go fix those things tomorrow and then turn it into the defense. They still have time to do so. Trial hasn't started. Like things can happen today against Bryan Kohberger. They can find the knife tomorrow and enter it into evidence. I don't understand what this is. Daniel of Hyundai, when it was 6 degrees here in Texas, ain't that bad? Yeah, but you typically have things like thermo and stuff like that on. And I'm not saying Bryan Kohberger didn't. He very well could have. But, you know, you risk just being out there and walking that distance. You're going to sweat. And that's going to create a possibility of leaving DNA behind. Not saying that killing 4 people, I'm shocked he didn't leave a drop of sweat behind. You know, I am. I don't understand how he did that unless he was wearing, like I think I said, maybe he's wearing a wetsuit underneath or something. I don't know. But I was shocked into that to go through that force and stuff, you know, to commit the crime in the manner that was committed and not to leave sweat or anything like that, a hair behind was puzzling to me. However, these murders aren't make-believe. They happened. Somebody went in there and somebody committed these crimes and somebody was able to do it without leaving sweat or hair behind. So you have to then factor in who could have done that. Is that usually a result of somebody who is out of their mind and can't think straight because they're on roids or their girlfriend broke up with them? No, that's not usually the case. This is usually the case of somebody who planned this out meticulously. So, you know, a case of where somebody who went through extensive planning, somebody who knew maybe perhaps how people were going to be investigated or how they were going to be investigated. There's a few things that could have happened there. Let's see. So quick and no evidence left behind. How thorough was the investigation? I don't think it matters how thorough the investigation was. Some people, you have to come to the realization that somebody knew what they were doing. Somebody had access to things that were going to protect them from leaving their DNA behind. It's not like, oh, because there's not that much information or that evidence, that means that they did it wrong. That's not the case at all. So he left the door open. Maybe it wasn't warm enough to sweat. That's true. I just feel that adrenaline and stuff. Yeah, I thought he would have. It just kind of tells you that, you know, how quickly he was in and out of there. He must have just been go before he had a time to settle down and then start to perspire. You know what I mean, Blue? Because that's happened like before, like where you're moving, and you don't start dripping or start sweating until you stop moving. And if you're walking and you're jogging and then you stop to wait to get in, that's going to cause you to sweat. Now, if you're driving around, you know, I would have thought he would probably be nervous and sweating a little bit, but you know, he could have had the AC on full blast in the middle of the night, and that could have helped him with that inside of his car and enter in, do what you got to do. And he didn't start the sweating process till he got into the car. It's quite possible for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's normal to sweat. Depends on, like you said, he has very bushy eyebrows. Thick hair. Maybe he's got a lot of hair, and maybe he was, like they say, he was wearing a jumpsuit.
Are there drugs that prevent you from sweating?
might be something that might slow it down, but you really don't want that because that's how your body regulates your body temperature, and especially in the heat. And you start knowing that you're starting to get heat exhaustion and heat stroke when your body stops sweating.
And there are many drugs that can help you with it, including
Yeah,
anti something allergenics, antiperspirants, antidepressants.
yeah. Some of them helps like slow it down. Like there's some people that just excessively sweat. Like, have you ever seen it? I always see it like sometimes I would say like the grocery store worker, the guy that goes and picks up the carts, or somebody that works at like maybe Home Depot working in the warehouse area. Their shirts, like their armpits, are like they spill water on them, man, because they sweat so much.
Mm-hmm.
And some people don't sweat that much.
Hmm.
They put on their Botox to prevent sweating too. So.
Yeah, because I mean the guy was up for a long period of time. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Regardless of anything, he was. Well, according to his own defense team, they said that he was driving through the middle of November 12th through the 13th. We only knew starting 2:47 a.m., but according to his own defense team, that he was out and about earlier than that, driving through the countryside, I guess, because they said he was going on long drives, and that apparently he went back home because he was at home or around his house at 2:47 or 2:44, or 2:42, I'm sorry, when his phone pings him near his house. So
yeah.
Interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff. I'm just curious because I mean, I think he was on something to have been out and about that night, committed 4 murders, allegedly, then go home, then go back to the murder scene, then go back home, then go to Clarkson, Washington, then go back to the middle of nowhere in Johnson, Idaho area, and be out there for several hours at a time, and then finally go back home after like 2 days of not sleeping, and then you see him go into prison or jail, I'm sorry, and he goes from sunken in face, sunken eyes, very thin, pale, to now he looks quite a bit healthier. And then they're feeding him the same thing that he was eating before. He's eating he's going through his vegan diet, so they're obliging through that. He's not changed that. And his workouts had decreased, as his defense team had stated. So no, I don't know. Well, guys, I want to say thank you to everybody that's tuned in. We appreciate everybody so much. Thank you for tuning in and being a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber and you're watching this and you're still watching this, just hit the subscribe button already. What are you doing? We're going to be back on Thursday. It'll be a good time. Blue, what do you have? Any final words for yourself or for anything for everybody?
No, I just want to say thank you for everybody's on here. Hopefully we'll get closer to hearing if they're going to move this case or not over, and we'll get closer to a court date. Until then, we'll be here covering it.
100%, guys. Until next time, we'll see you later. Peace.